cape.
Today we dive into the unbridled force of nature that are the Ironjawz, a wild and uncontrollable manifestation of destruction that roam about the realms. They will not be subjugated by chaos, nor be ruled over by the forces of order in Sigmar and his pantheon. This is freedom unchained, in the fullest sense of the word freedom. No rules, morals, structures, or direction. Again, a true force of nature. Now, the Ironjawz are not a specific group of orcs, but a loose classification of orc clans of colossal size and destruction. Now, this is really important to know, as it explains why Ironjawz can be everywhere from different color schemes and different locations, things like that. And to explain how these various clans all over the place became what we now collectively know as Ironjawz, we need to look into their origin. Their story starts in the Age of Chaos. The combined demonic might of the Chaos Gods has entered the mortal realms, and mortal champions have risen up to invade, corrupt, or enslave. And in their conquest to dominate all the realms, Chaos goes to Gur, where it encounters hundreds of bands of orcs. But here's the thing, more so than any order faction, orcs are a unique type of enemy. The more an orc fights, the bigger and stronger they become. Their skin toughens, they grow in stature and strength. So against the kind of vanguard, lightly, fast-moving armies of chaos, these orcs thrive. And the bigger the forces come, by then the orcs have grown stronger and they're able to meet the challenge, and this creates a huge snowball effect. More enemies makes them stronger, so chaos sends more enemies because there is a huge army there, right? Orcs can't be ignored, they're a huge threat, so you keep sending more guys, and the more guys you send, the more orcs get stronger. And you take this and you multiply it by the hundreds of years in the Age of Chaos, and you see orcs reach new levels of strength and stature, and this kind of classification of Ironjawz is given, and they're not like other orcs. Because this was a critical moment in their development. As orcs go to battle, they call in all nearby clans and mobs and loose orcs, whatever. And so during their initial creation, there was this huge influx of new orcs. So you had like Clan A started this whole fight with kind of the vanguard forces, and when they did a huge wall, all the nearby forces of orcs and clans and stuff like that, B and C, would come in, fight. When the chaos is defeated, the bosses of those various A, B, and C tribes would all fight, and one of them would win and take command. Now the clan itself has just tripled in size, and this happens multiple times. Again, more enemies, more clans drawn in, and they get bigger and tougher with every single battle. And this added to that snowball effect. So now you don't just have orcs getting stronger physically, personally, but they keep drawing more in because, hey, those guys are having a really good time fighting. I want to go fight with them, and this kind of influx happens. All those things go together to make Ironjawz a colossal threat in a relatively short amount of time. When you consider how mighty and powerful and realm-changing their presence is compared to, say, the development and research of Stormcast Eternals as a unit, or how long it takes for a champion to walk the path to glory to become a demon, this happens very relatively quick. In addition to the fact that it happens fast, it doesn't happen in one isolated event. This type of snowball effect is happening throughout the mortal realms wherever there are enough orcs. So that's why I'm saying they're not a unified clan. This action and reaction with chaos happened all over the place. And that's why there are several Ironjawz clans from the different mortal realms. And stories abound in the Battle Tome with isolated Ironjawz war clans. People who have never seen Gordrakk. They just are a megaboss who does their best, draws in more troops, and keeps fighting. Which is great because this way you can have a war clan that has its own unique feel and history and color schemes and that kind of thing. And for example, the Iron Snout war clan features a ton of Gorefist, so a lot of Gorgruntas, the big boar riders, who don't bow down to Gordrakk as of yet because they haven't really encountered him. So how does this hulking mass of giants who just kind of keep cycling out troops and getting stronger, how do they go to war? And what keeps this mob together? What keeps them from killing each other? Well, the key to army organization with Ironjawz is that you go back and you put the word organization in some pretty strong air quotes, because there's very, very little of it. And we'll describe it from the bottom to the top with this little handy graphic. At the bottom are the mobs. This can be a unit of anything from 5 to 500. It does not matter what it is. It's just you get a bunch of orcs together who like fighting the same way, right? They like, oh, you like fighting with two-hand weapons? I like fighting with two-hand weapons. Let's fight together with our two-hand weapons and just multiply that, right? Oh, you like barreling into combat on the back of a wall of pork? Me too. Let's do that together. It's a mob. When you get enough of them together, right, 5 mobs make a fist. And if you actually put your hand out and imagine that each one of your fingers is a mob, 5 mobs equals 1 fist, and make a fist with your hand. This is because orcs kind of lack huge counting skills, and so everything's kind of in increments of 5 because that's what they can count. This changes if you have lost an arm or something like that, and some crazy orcs out there are supposedly able to count up to 20 because they don't wear boots, but that's just a myth. Please disregard. But you have your 5 mobs, and they don't have to be identical. They can be different. You could have 3 mobs of brutes and then 2 with gorgunters, or just 5 that are ardboys. Whatever it is, they make a fist. And this is the most common fighting structure that you're going to see. If you look at the various battalions in the battle tome, they're kind of centered around the fist, right? The gore fist, the weird fist, the brute fist. It's just a classification of like, hey, these are the kinds of units that are in this army. Now, if you zoom out a little bit further and you get 5 fists, you have a brawl. So if you were to swing that fist 5 times, that's a good fight, and we call it a brawl. And each brawl has its own war boss. And at this point, because you've gotten so many mobs, which are in so many fists, it looks like a chaotic mass at this point. And a war clan will have up to 5 brawls in it. So you can imagine that when you get that many together, that is a mega army. Absolutely huge. Now to kind of like bring that back a little bit here because it's so humorous, I want to focus on it a little bit. If you put your hand out, you got 5 fingers, 5 mobs make a fist. Put your fingers together, 5 fists or punches make a brawl. And I love it because of the kind of limits of their kind of mental power cap out at 5. But they just use that. They just incorporate it as something that they can understand and govern. Now, what's also of note is that this is an incredibly fluid structure. War clans will change and evolve as much as the orcs fighting in them do. If you find a new way to enjoy killing somebody, like I don't like using the 2-hand weapons, I want to go to like a big 2-handed weapon, you can do that, and there is a mob for you. And here's the thing, this is how other people kind of classify Ironjawz, but on the battlefield, they're not structured. This loose structure ties well with kind of the might makes right mentality of all orcs. So if you organize your mobs and things like that, and they all camp out together, but then when the battle starts and everyone's rushing towards the enemy, a mega boss will just stand up on top of the rock, point his finger, and yell for someone to go kill that guy. And everyone just kind of does it. The army just responds to commands fluidly because they're not tied to a rigid command structure. Right? The mega boss gives an order, and then no one's as big as the mega boss, right? Might makes right. Who are you to argue? And you just do it. So it has all the benefits of being well structured and organized without kind of the drawbacks of chain of command and individual orders and things like that. And the reason that I go into all this detail about how they are structured is because they did not just survive the Age of Chaos, they thrived in it. Again, this is their origin story. If Chaos didn't enter the realms, this probably wouldn't have gone the same way. And tons of factions, did okay during it. The Keratin Overlords, their population boomed because no one was really fighting them in the sky. Or the Fire Slayers were able to tunnel down and barricade their doors so no one could get to them. But few people really actively engaged the Chaos forces and then continued to grow because of it. This is because they respond to the pressures of war in a vastly different way than any other faction. And this was only amplified when Gorkamorka sent his kind of herald, Gordrakk, the Fist of Gork, who we already covered in a dedicated video. And since his arrival, he's kind of been drawing the various Ironjawz war clans to him. Again, we talked about how there are clans that have never heard of Gordrakk, but in their hearts and in their Weird Knob shamans' dreams, they're being inextricably drawn to something in Gur, and so they're kind of this magnetic pull towards getting this huge wall together. And then eventually, in their mythos and their spirituality, there's supposed to be a grand wall where the forces of destruction go out and just decimate everything, chaos and order and death alike. And just like a regular mega boss draws other clans to him while he's engaged in fighting, Gordrakk is drawing all destruction forces towards him. Now, why do I talk about this? Why is it such a cool thing? Now, obviously, organizational structure is not typically the most exciting type of video, but the whole fist thing I thought was just incredibly fun and thematic. It allows for so much narrative flexibility in a list. If you look at the Ironjawz battalions, most of them are extremely flexible in what you can bring, only adding to the fact that you can have a mob of any variety in a fist. And this whole origin story and what they are like and how they grow and what makes them strong, it's kind of tied to how they've made it to this point in the story arc. That snowball effect, that kind of fluid structure and resistance to any order, it puts them as a force of nature and really drives that home. The fact that they get stronger after every fight, during a fight they draw more forces to themselves, and if you are another orc clan, you see someone having fun, you want to join in, and it just kind of keeps growing and growing and growing. And when you bring that into the, kind of like I said, destruction is a force of nature, no kings or governments, only might. And you have the strongest mega boss of all time, Gordrakk, the Fist of Gork, things get amplified. Because at this point, the walls that the Ironjawz can put out are not just military campaigns. They are like a rushing flood or an earthquake or a volcano, a natural response to the pressure of chaos and the domination of order. And so friends, those are my thoughts, opening thoughts I should say, on the Ironjawz, and it really sets the tone for what we talk about later in this week. And this is an incredible faction with a lot of cool, flavorful background. I do hope that Destruction gets a little more love this coming year. But for right now, with what we have, Ironjawz and Bonesplitters tend to be the most focused on Destruction as a whole. Beastclaw Raiders is kind of insular in scope. But Bonesplitters and Ironjawz more specifically have pushed major events in the story arc, especially during the Realmgate Wars. Most notably, the huge fight that took place for the Allgate during the book Allgates, where Gordrakk led his forces in and just tore both Chaos and Order forces down into dust. So I hope you enjoyed this video. We have a lot more coming up this week, and I want to hear your thoughts. What is it about the Ironjawz specifically that draws you to them, if so? Even if you don't play them, you can say, like, that's a cool thing. I want to hear about it, because these are the kind of things that make these factions so special. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in tomorrow's video.